So earlier today on November 30th, we got this story about an earthquake in Dover, Delaware, a 4.1 earthquake. And the reason I'm even making this video is because just 3 days ago, I was talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and how a bunch of stuff seemingly is synced up to what I was talking about in the year 2015 and Pope Francis's visit to the United States, where he went to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. It's one of these seven churches. But later on in this post, I even mentioned how I still think all of this somehow is connected to a bridge collapse or an earthquake near Philadelphia. And now, 3 days later, we're getting an earthquake in Dover, Delaware, that was felt in Philadelphia. And even when you look up Dover, Delaware, it tells you that it's part of the Philadelphia, Wilmington, Camden statistical area, right? So it is an earthquake that happened near Philadelphia. How interesting that I would even write this in my blog just 3 days ago. And in 2015, what I was documenting was a bunch of stuff that was connected to this movie, Happy Gilmore, and he learns how to putt on the earthquake golf course. And the building that falls over has this black cube on it that looks a lot like the Comcast Center that is in Philadelphia. And notice the building even falls over. He learns how to putt an hour and 7 minutes into the movie. And in gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words, the word earthquake equals 107. So if you don't know what gematria is, check out the links in the description. I explain more of what it is, and you can learn to apply it for yourself. A couple short videos, very simple. It's used every single day in our mainstream media. These natural disasters, I don't think are so natural. You know what I mean? The Houston floods were all synced up to the Houston Astros winning the World Series, and whatever else. Our history is coded this way. Our sports leagues are absolutely scripted this way. But notice the word earthquake also equals 44 in gematria. And think about Dover, Delaware. D is the fourth letter, so D is a lot like 44. Fitting that we would get an earthquake in Dover, Delaware. It's even on a date numerology of 58, 4 plus 30 plus 17. You add that up, it equals 58. And if you go back and watch what I've been documenting for years in regards to earthquakes, it's all about the numbers 58 and its reflection 85. And, words such as like seismograph equals 58 in gematria, Richter scale equals 58 in gematria. The study of earthquakes goes back to 585 BC by this guy named Falls of Miletus. Or maybe I spelled it wrong. No, his name equals 85, right? The mirror of 58. And this year we even had the Mexico City earthquake. That was 585 days after Pope Francis was in Mexico City, right? So just an absolute fitting day for earthquakes, a date numerology of 58. Here's more of what I wrote in here. The big one equals 85, Charles Francis Richter. He died age 85 in the year 85. Seismology, seismograph equals 58. Also, I talked a lot about East Coast earthquakes because I've been talking about how I think there's going to be an earthquake near Philadelphia. And possibly this earthquake will lead to another bigger earthquake. Who knows? But just interesting, I would even rewrite that in my blog 3 days ago, and then we get an earthquake near Philadelphia. That's the point I'm trying to make. And the last biggest earthquake in east of the Rocky Mountains was in Mineral, Virginia, that was felt in Philadelphia, and it was a 5.8. And the one before that was a 5.8 called the Cornwall Messina earthquake that happened in the year 44. Remember, earthquake equals 44? And the one before that was in Charleston, and it was exactly 58 years, 5 days before this Cornwall Messina one. 58 585. These numbers are super connected to earthquakes. Pope Francis even equals 58 in Gematria. The word Freemasonry equals 58 in Gematria. So I'll show you more about this earthquake in a second. I noticed some interesting things connected to the Baltimore Ravens and also to the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm pretty sure it's not connected to them being in the Super Bowl. The reason that it's interesting is that it was a 4.1 earthquake, and if you write out Super Bowl in Gematria, it equals 41, a lot like the 4.1 earthquake. But I want to show you this other post before I go back to that, because I want to show you what I was talking about in regards to Philadelphia. So Philadelphia just won their game the other day when they beat the Bears, and they won 31-3, becoming 10-1. Right? Their record is 10-1. And look at Philadelphia in Gematria. Philadelphia, it equals 101, a lot like 10-1. So fitting they would be 10-1. And they won 31-3. 313 just so happens to be the 65th prime number. And look at Philadelphia in the reduction way. It equals 65 in Gematria. And I also pointed out the Chiefs game in this post because the Chiefs lost and they became 6-5, and they lost to the Bills, who became 6-5. Once again, Philadelphia equals 65 in Gematria. And the reason that the Chiefs are significant is because they were connected to what I was talking about in 2015. And the Chiefs and the Eagles have this interrelatedness in regards to their coaching staffs, such as Chip Kelly was the coach in 2015, and the reason that he was the coach of the Eagles was because Andy Reid got fired, and then they hired Chip Kelly, and Andy Reid is the coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then when Chip Kelly got fired, they hired Doug Peterson, who was one of the offensive coaches for the Kansas City Chiefs before getting hired at uh, Philadelphia, right? And look at the gematria of them all. Andrew Reid equals 56. Chip Kelly equals 56. When he got fired, the interim coach was Pat Shurmur, that equals 56. And then they hired Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson equals 56. So there was this interrelated stuff in regards to the Kansas City Chiefs with the Philadelphia Eagles stuff. That's why I looked at the Chiefs game here, and the Chiefs became 6-5 when they lost to Buffalo, who became 6-5. You know, Philadelphia equals 65, and this same day, Philadelphia wins 31-3, and 313 is the 65th prime number. Also, it was super connected to Pope Francis's visit, right, to the United States. And Pope Francis became the Pope on March 13th of 2013. 3/13/13, right? A lot like 313, the 65th prime number. And I pointed out that the last time the Eagles made the Super Bowl, their regular season was 13-3, which in a lot of parts of the world, they'd even rate that date as 13/3, right? So possibly nothing, but just wanted to point it out. Also, the last time that the Eagles made the Super Bowl, there was games that had to be rescheduled due to hurricanes or whatever in Miami. The Miami Dolphins had to reschedule 2 of their games due to hurricanes. So a lot like this year. So be interesting if we see the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I really don't know for sure. I'm always wrong on the Super Bowl. It seems I've learned some stuff over the past 3 years of doing this, and this cowboy theme that I was following, I'm pretty sure it's not for the Cowboys to be in the Super Bowl, but who knows? Maybe something's changed. So I also pointed out that the day of this game, November 25th, it was 22 days before Pope Francis's birthday, which is interesting because Eagles in gematria equal 22. And if you go from the day that Pope Francis arrived in Philadelphia in 2015 on September 26th, he arrived in Philadelphia that day, but he didn't leave until September 27th, which was the Jesuit anniversary And then later that night, we got the fourth blood moon of the Tetrad, right? And anyway, if you go from the day that Pope Francis arrived in Philadelphia to the Super Bowl this year, it's a span of 863 days. And 863 is the 150th prime number. And if you write out Philadelphia Eagles, it equals 150 in gematria. And, I documented a whole bunch of other stuff in regards to the Ben Franklin Bridge previously in previous years because the Ben Franklin Bridge was opened in honor of the 150th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, being signed. The Declaration of Independence signed by 56 signers. The first one to sign it was John Hancock. He died age 56. And then they all died. The last one to die died 56 years after signing it. It was Charles Carroll III. And, he's the guy in the movie National Treasure, where the secret lies with Charlotte, that was passed down through Charles Carroll. I was also talking a lot about the ram symbolism that was going on when I was talking about the stuff with the Chiefs and the Eagles, because Colin Kaepernick, right, when he started kneeling, it was when he played for the San Francisco 49ers, who play in Levi's Stadium. And Moses was in the tribe of Levi, and Moses brought in the age of Aries. Aries is the ram. And also in 2015, we got the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who, for whatever the reason, somehow got a bowl game with a terrible record, and they went and played in Levi's Stadium for the Foster Farms Bowl. And Nebraska has all of these connections to Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln, Nebraska, Abraham Lincoln. Think about Moses, who freed the slaves, Abraham Lincoln, who supposedly freed the slaves. They have this connection. And Nebraska plays in what they call the Sea of Red, right? Memorial Stadium, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. They also play in the Sea of Red. Moses parted the Red Sea. It's all based on these themes. But we had Sam Bradford, who was drafted to the Rams, and then he came from the Eagles to the Minnesota Vikings. And the day that he came to the Vikings, we got the 5.6 earthquake in Oklahoma, where he had played in college, right? And Sam Bradford in gematria equals 56. We get a 5.6 earthquake in Oklahoma the day that he is traded to the Minnesota Vikings because Teddy Bridgewater got injured. And the previous season, Colin Kaepernick's last game that he played was on November 8th. And on November 8th is Sam Bradford's birthday. And Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. He got a concussion against the Rams. LaMarcus Joyner, I believe, knocked him out. And that was on Sam Bradford's birthday. That was the last game that Colin Kaepernick had started that year. And then we have, Teddy Bridgewater reminding us of the Minnesota Bridge collapse. And I'm telling you, I feel like there's just something connected to the Ben Franklin Bridge that's in Philadelphia. And that's what I was mentioning in here is there's something going on with this bridge. I feel like there's going to be a bigger earthquake sometime in the future near Philadelphia that's going to do something to this bridge or something to the Comcast Center. That's why on Happy Gilmore they have the Comcast Center right here. Or, it looks a lot like the Comcast Center. It doesn't look like any other building in the United States. Has the black cube on it that, Jew boy Adam Sandler absolutely loves. The New Jerusalem. It's, even in the movie Pixels, they have the black cubes or whatever. So hopefully that makes sense, I wonder if this little earthquake is going to cause a bigger earthquake sometime in the near future, That's how earthquakes seem to work. There's one that happens. Sometimes there's a bigger one, or there's more that come after it in the same general area. So who knows? I've been talking about this since 2015, and I randomly bring it back up, and then we get an earthquake 3 days later in the same area that I'm talking about. I then later on pointed out, so Teddy Bridgewater got injured on 11/8 against the Rams, and that was the same day that Colin Kaepernick started his last game that season, and that's also Sam Bradford's birthday, 11/8. The Eagles. Remember the band The Eagles? We got the death of Glenn Fry right after the Eagles of Death Metal concert that got attacked in Paris or whatever, right? So the Eagles of Death Metal. Then we got the death of the Eagles member Glenn Fry on January 18th. Both of these dates a lot like 118. And then we got another member of the Eagles, Randy Meisner. His wife died 1 month and 18 days after 118. And the Paris attacks happened 1 month, 18 days after Pope Francis first arrived in Philadelphia. Pope Francis's birthday this year is 1 month and 18 days before the Super Bowl. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania equals 118. Doug Peterson was hired on January 18th, the same day that Eagles Glenn Fry died. And even if you write out his full name, Douglas Irving Peterson, it equals 313. You know, fitting for that 65 that's connected that Philadelphia equals. And I also pointed out the word death equals 118. That's something, you see this number a lot of times around death. So just pointing that out. Also, lately, I've been talking a whole lot about this Ralph symbolism, and towards the end of 2016, I even said I thought Ralphie May was going to die in the next year, and then we got the death of comedian Ralphie May in October this year, and he died in Las Vegas just after the Las Vegas attacks, and it was synced up to my video that I was talking about with him, and I noticed there was a whole bunch of 231 with him. He died 231 days after his birthday of cardiac arrest. That equals 231. And the video I put out about fat comedians dying by the number 124 was the 231st day of the year. And national anthem equals 231. And that's super important to the Super Bowl this year. And that's why we got the death of Charles Manson, because he was all about, the helter-skelter theory with blacks rising up. And that's why everybody's kneeling during the national anthem still. And in regards to this 231, all of this Ralphie May stuff started with the movie The Big Lebowski. And in The Big Lebowski, he hates the fucking Eagles, right? So once again, something connected back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Because, or to the Eagles, the band, right? The Big Lebowski hates the Eagles. And The Big Lebowski equals the same thing as national anthem. Philadelphia Eagles equal 150. If you add out 150, it equals 231, just like national anthem. Also, the guy who plays the Big Lebowski, or the dude on the Big Lebowski, his name is Jeff Bridges, right? Just reminded me, again, of the Minnesota bridge collapse. There's something connected to bridges. And that's also where Colin Kaepernick fits in with it all, because San Francisco is where the Golden Gate Bridge is. And, the Golden Gate is what the Jews believe is where the Messiah is going to return through. So let's go back to this post then about the earthquake here. And hopefully I didn't lose you. I'll leave some links in the description. You have to watch more of what I'm talking about. It gets kind of, mind-boggling if you haven't been paying attention to what I'm saying. But there's a lot of interrelated events in the world or in the media and everything else that's synced up to these sporting events and synced up to the, other events, natural disasters supposedly, and, other things that are going on in the media. There's a lot of interrelated events. So it was a 4.1 earthquake, and Super Bowl equals 41. And if you go from the day that this earthquake happened to the Super Bowl, it's a span of 66 days, or it's just 66 days away. And the same day we got this earthquake, we had the Cowboys play the Indians, right? Just right after Thanksgiving and everything else, the Pilgrims and the Indians. Anyway, the Cowboys won the game, and they became 6-6, 66 days before the Super Bowl. And I also, I really do not think it's for the Cowboys. I followed something that I don't think it's for the Cowboys whatsoever. And anyway, in regards to 66 also, I noticed that in this earthquake story, it says the earthquake happened 50 miles from Philadelphia, but also 66 miles from Baltimore, right, where the Ravens play. And in gematria, Baltimore Ravens equals 66. Then, this earthquake was 66 miles away from Baltimore, 66 days before the Super Bowl. And Baltimore Ravens have interesting gematria. They equal 231, just like national anthem. Minnesota Vikings also equal 231. And of course, they're the team that's hosting the Super Bowl, possibly could be in the Super Bowl. There's something very significant to the national anthem stuff, to the Super Bowl this year, and this number 231. So I really don't know for sure what I think in regards to it, but it's something interesting. It's something to keep watching for because the Baltimore Ravens are also the Black Bird, right? And Blackbird is the song by the Beatles that Charles Manson said was telling black people to rise up against the whites, right? The Blackbird, that's why we got the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl last year. They were the Black Bird. So the Ravens are definitely a team to watch out for. It doesn't even look like they're going to make the playoffs, but, you know, it could possibly happen. We'll see how it plays out and see in the next couple of weeks. We'll see what's going on with the how the NFL is scripted. And anyway, if you look up Joe Flacco just so happened to go to college in Delaware, right where this earthquake happened. Joe Flacco went to college there. Also, his full name Joseph Vincent Flacco equals 313 in reverse gematria, reminding us of Philadelphia yet again. So maybe showing me this, maybe understanding this and seeing the Baltimore Ravens, it's still just another sign for the Philadelphia Eagles to be in the Super Bowl. I also noted that he'll be 33 years old on January 16th, and Delaware, the first state, Delaware equals 33. And there's only three states that equal 33 in gematria. 33, a super important number in regards to Freemasonry. It's the highest degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and this country was absolutely founded on Freemasonry. Everything about it. That's why our nation's independence is 7/4, because Independence Day equals 74, Masonic equals 74, Holiday 74, Jesus, Cross, Messiah, Gospel, Lucifer, Joshua, Yeshua, all of them words equal 74 in Gematria. So I'm sure I lost some people, but I wonder if we're going to get another earthquake story and maybe a more destructive one. Possibly nothing. Like I said, I've been talking about this since 2015, and it's just interesting. I would just randomly bring it back up, and then 3 days later, we really do get an earthquake that I've been talking about for 2 years. Although it wasn't destructive, like I'm thinking there eventually is going to be something that does something to the Comcast Center or that Franklin Bridge. So who knows? Have a good one. We'll see what happens. Peace.